Welcome back to the House of Hoosier Podcast, presented by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. I'm Ian Plaskoff, joined as always by Noah Gerkey. It's been a little while. Indiana basketball had a really interestingly long break during the finals week and then into winter break a little bit. But they're back. They've played a couple of Big Ten games since, and we'll talk about that right here. I'm in Atlanta covering Indiana football in the Peach Bowl. I still have my lanyard on. I just came from Coach Signetti's and Coach Lanning's availability. So, packed schedule for me. That also played a little role in the delay. But we're back and ready to talk some basketball because there have been some promising signs over the past two games, to be honest.
Things look good when you win games. Doesn't matter how you win games, especially in the Big Ten. They're 3-1 in the Big Ten, and honestly, that's about what you can ask for right now. That's a good start. They're about to hit a gauntlet. I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but 3-1 in the Big Ten's a good sign, and you're starting to see some things kind of mesh together here.
You didn't, at least I didn't really know what this team would look like going into the Big Ten slate because, looking back, you see Marquette it was a pretty big win in the non-con. They're not very good. Kansas State, I haven't paid too much attention to, but then you see those losses to Minnesota, Louisville, Kentucky. Like, all right, is this team going to be able to put up a fight when it plays consistent Power Four opponents? Because you also had that massive win over Penn State in there too. And so far, through the first two games of the rest of Big Ten play after that little non-con break, it's a 90-80 win over Washington, 84-66 at Maryland. And those are the two games that you needed to win. Because looking at this stretch, which we'll dive deeper into as we go on, of number 10 Nebraska, number 12 Michigan State, 19 Iowa, 2 Michigan, and then a little break at Rutgers, which is always difficult at the rack, or Jersey Mike's Arena, whatever they call it now. And then you're versus Purdue. And then you go out west. It just never ends. But these Washington and Maryland games here over the past few days have really been necessary, I think, for this team. And it worked out well.
They're big momentum boosters, and also when you start 0-1 in the conference, the way they did at Minnesota, who at the time looked like a really bad basketball team when Indiana caught them. Indiana caught them in the middle of their injuries, which is why they dropped the first 4 or 5 games that they had played. They were absolutely sliced and diced with injuries. Indiana goes on the road for the first time under a new head coach. They fall on the road. You got to bounce back. They beat Penn State by 40, and now you win your first two conference games, albeit against two teams in the conference that aren't particularly very good. I mean, Maryland is a very bad basketball team. I'm sorry, Maryland fans. They're hard to watch, especially without Pharrell Payne, who I believe transferred from Minnesota, now at Maryland. They're really missing him. They're just not very good at all right now. You had to get these two because this is the biggest stretch. And also, you're trying to stack wins because you don't have the marquee non-conference win. We talked about, I think, his last episode, how you had to get to maybe 20, 21 wins. Now, if you're going to get to that number, you're guaranteed to have some good wins along the way to help boost your resume, but you can't afford to drop the ones that you're supposed to win. And those two are ones that you are absolutely supposed to win. You can't afford to drop with the next 6, 8 games.
Let's look at the first of these two, a home game versus Washington. And you just said before we started recording, confirmed not good basketball team, Washington, in your eyes. I was high on Washington to start the year. I was really high on Hannes Steinbach, and I still am because he's really good. But this is a team that struggled to figure it out. And they have also been limited with a couple injuries as well. But a 90-80 win for Indiana at home versus Washington. Indiana shot over 50% from the field, over 40% from three on 12 makes, and 16 of 20 from the free throw line. That's been the model of wins so far this year for Indiana, shooting the ball well and at a high volume. Only 4 turnovers and out-rebounded Washington 33-29, which is rare, 11-8 in the offensive rebound category. Feels like the recipe that Indiana has built to win a game was executed pretty well against Washington. And, when you put up 90 in a game, in a Big Ten game, you probably have a good chance to win.
Yeah, and you got concerned at the beginning because Washington went with that triangle and two defense, which essentially face guards Lamar Wilkerson and Tucker DeVries the entire game. You try to not let them catch the basketball, hurt you. And the other three guys run a zone defense, essentially. So you're leaving a lot of open 3-point shots. And the big question for Indiana was who outside of those two and Nick Dorn were going to step up and hit threes. Connerway was 4 for 4 from three. I think they were all in the first half, if I'm not mistaken, in that game. Connor Enright stepped up and hit two threes and forced them to immediately go out of that defense. Then you started the stretch in the second half, and they started to go man to man. Trent Sisley had that 10-point stretch by himself when they were trying to still limit Wilkerson, who had gotten hot for a little bit. It really, for Indiana, and Coach DeVries said it last night in the social media video they posted, it's going to be different guys every night. You might have some consistent with Lamar. It's going to be different guys who have stepped up. It was Connerway against Washington. It was Connor Enright last night against Maryland. It's going to be a different group of guys, and with Tucker DeVries really struggling to shoot the basketball right now over the last few games, they've had to have people step up, and the recipe for success is if you can get on the glass and you can make shots and get out and run, you're going to beat a lot of teams in the Big Ten. And you're right, scoring 90 points, you're going to win. A lot of the time, you score 90 points.
Let's talk about Connor Enright a little bit because he's grown on a lot of Indiana fans, I would think, in the past two games and over the recent portion of this season against Washington. He had 12 points and 9 assists, and he would say that those 9 assists were more important to him than those 12 points, and he did say that. And then against Maryland, he added 16 points and 3 assists, 4 rebounds. He was all over the place, and he's shooting efficiently. He's only shooting when he really feels like he needs to. And when Connor Enright is able to get depth at that guard position, not only from an aggressiveness standpoint, defensive standpoint, but also bring in the offense, it makes this team look different. And that's something that I personally didn't expect to see much in this season, but he's proven me wrong.
Everybody was really low on Connor Enright because he didn't provide much value on offense, me included. It kind of felt like they were playing 4-on-5 on offense sometimes when he was on the floor because of his, not because of his lack of offensive ability, but because he didn't necessarily go towards scoring. That wasn't where he gravitated towards, was being an impact player on the scoring aspect of things. He wanted to distribute the ball and make sure that the teammates are getting involved. But over the last few games, people are starting to hone in a little bit more on Wilkerson and DeVries, although they can't really stop Wilkerson right now the way he shoots the basketball. Just unbelievable. But Connor Enright's had the ability to go be a scorer, to knock down threes, to be the impact player on the offensive side in the scoring department. And that just makes Indiana such a more deep team, such a more complex team to try to scout and guard. He's not a bad 3-point shooter. He doesn't shoot at a high volume, but he's a very capable offensive scorer. And a lot of people are starting to like him. At least social media did last night. Hey, where's this been, Connor Enright? But he hasn't had to do it. And now he is doing it. And it's because they've needed him to do it. They're filling all the right pieces right now in the puzzle.
Yeah, with Wilkerson and DeVries getting so much attention every game, which is expected. I mean, one's handling it a little differently than the other. Wilkerson's still putting up shots and making quite a few of them. He put up 17 in each of the last two games. Tucker DeVries has really struggled as of late. He had 6 points against Washington on 3 of 7 shooting, picked up 3 personal fouls as well. 5 points on 2 of 7 shooting, 1 of 6 from three against Maryland, picked up 4 fouls, had a couple of steals and a couple assists, but like this is not the same Tucker DeVries that won Big Ten Player of the Week in week one or was the number one option for Indiana early in the season. But then you look at Wilkerson, he's still putting up 17 shots. He made 24 points for him, 6 rebounds as well. Connerway added another 19, but like I've posed the question a couple times in recent episodes of like, when do you start to get worried about Tucker DeVries and if he's able to bounce back? And we still haven't seen the answer in these last two games.
Yeah, dating back to Kentucky, he is now 7 for his last 30 from beyond the arc, which is good for 23%. His average has dropped down to 33% on the year. And it's not necessarily that the shots aren't going in, but it's the same continued shot selection. It's the fadeaway threes off the ball screen. I played a little bit of basketball in high school. I sat behind some good basketball players, had a great basketball coach in high school. At least in my experience, if you're 1 for 6, 1 for 7, a fadeaway 3-pointer off a screen, off the ball, probably not your best shot to get back into a rhythm. Tucker DeVries is a lot better basketball player than I am. I understand it. It's the shot selection that we're still watching him take and miss these rates of shots. Like I said, 7 for his last 30. So, and it's not really the quality of looks. They're just not going in right now. And it's the frustrating part is he was making these tough shots in the beginning of the year, and it's this guy's a great talented shooter. He makes a bunch of tough shots, and he is still that. We just haven't seen it, and it's still the same looks, which makes it a little bit more frustrating.
I'm going to let you show off for a bit. Who are these basketball players you speak of that you played behind?
I sat behind Brooks Barnheiser, who plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I sat by Javen Buchanan, who currently is a starting forward for Boise State at the moment.
Not bad. So
Former NAIA National Player of the Year, Javen Buchanan, who's now at Boise State. Not bad. I've seen some basketball, and these guys are a lot better basketball players than I ever was. However, sometimes it's frustrating as a fan from an outside perspective when you see a guy struggling to shoot, but it's still the same shot selection of when he's on.
compare your game to an Indiana basketball player. Who are you most similar to?
Nobody, nobody on the floor. I think if I had to compare in like the last few years, it'd be Colin Hartman would probably be my comparison over like some time.
If you
That's
can
the
play
most
school
accurate.
finals.
Yeah, him or Miller Kopp. I
Okay.
shot a bunch of threes.
That's, sometimes it works. And you would fit right into this team because this team continues to shoot a bunch of threes, just like you did in high school, Noah. 28 threes against Washington, 25 against Maryland. Those are attempts. Those are not makes as much as we want them to be makes in those games. 12 of 28 against Washington, 8 of 25 against Maryland, with an average of, let's see if I can do math, 90 and 84 average, something like 87. Yep, 87 points a game. So the direct correlation, I mean, that's how this team has been built. Make threes, make shots, win. Um, and a lot of that starts with efficiency and volume from behind the arc. Lamar Wilkerson's led the charge as expected, but he also has shot the most per game by a landslide. But it seems that there's always one guy that steps up and has a hot shooting night in addition to that, that really is a difference maker. Against Washington, it was Connerway who was 4 for 4. And you look at the Maryland game, Wilkerson had three himself, and then I mean two each from Connerway and Enright added on. 8 was a lower total than usual, but there's always one or two guys that add to Wilkerson's production from beyond the arc that seem to be like, that was a difference right there.
And it's been different people each time. Nick Dorn's had a few big games. Tatum Connerway stepped up, and now Connor Enright. And what's promising is that we've talked about Tucker DeVries' slump a little bit. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Is what if he starts heating back up again? Now you add yet another dynamic, and the thing is, people still scout him and respect him as one of the premier shooters in the conference because he's shown the ability to do so. So if he does start knocking down those shots, or teams start scouting him as, hey, he's struggling, we can leave him open a little bit, and he starts to heat back up, that's going to really expand the offense in a lot of dynamic ways that they can get to the rim a little bit more easy. It's been a while since we've seen Connerway go to the rim a whole bunch. We talked about earlier in the year how he was their lone guy that you can give the ball to and say, get to the rim and get a basket just by giving him the ball. He's going to have the ability to do that a lot more if Tucker DeVries comes back and starts shooting the way we know he's capable of doing. And right now, they've been, like I said, filling in all the right pieces for people stepping up. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that they're winning games with him struggling because he picked a good stretch to not necessarily have the hottest shooting games as well.
Indiana defensively as well on the three pointers. Washington was 6 of 21, 29%. Maryland was 5 of 26 for 19%. When you're able to hold teams off the line, also keep them off the free throw line as best you can and funnel everybody down low into difficult shots. I mean, that's kind of how defense works, but it works for Indiana and it's worked to get wins in both these games. Now, 80 points for Washington's probably more than what DeVries would want to see, but 66 to a Maryland team at home. Now, granted, the crowd was not great, but you like to see that. That's a promising sign. As for the bigs, minutes have been lower for Sam Alexis in the last two games. Um, Against Washington, Believe it was, yeah, 16 minutes against Washington, 12 minutes against Maryland, 4 points against Washington, two against Maryland. But Reed Bailey stepped up in College Park and played a role as well against the Huskies. He's been getting to the free throw line. He's looked a little more comfortable. What have you seen there?
Reed Bailey was great last night. He was fantastic. I really enjoyed watching him play in the way that he helped the offense. Well, I believe he was seven for his first seven from the free throw line. And then he started to pick things up in the offense. When Lamar started to get hot, the bigs started to play a little higher on the ball screen. He was able to slip those for nice, easy actions, maybe 8 to 10 feet from the basket. He's looked really good. And the thing with Sam Alexis is we talked earlier about how he's their inside scoring presence. He's struggled. He was 0 for 4, kind of looked rushed on a lot of the attempts he took in the Maryland game. It's just going to be a by committee thing, but they've done a lot of minutes where they play a smaller five. They'll play Trent Sisley out there, or they'll play Nick Dorn out there, and they won't have a big on the floor for a good stretch, maybe before immediate timeout. Or they'll do Reed Bailey and they'll go small with Enright, Connerway, Wilkerson, and Nick Dorn. It's interesting because right now, the dynamic at the beginning of the year with Sam Alexis plays so hard, he's going to be the big rebounder, the impacting force. And Reed Bailey's kind of taken that and played a lot harder. He stepped it up. He was probably one of the more fun players to watch on the floor last night, outside of course, Wilkerson's hot stretch and Connor Enright's continued offensive rise. I really enjoyed watching Reed Bailey play last night. I thought he played great for the situation that was given him at hand.
It's back-to-back games where Indiana's caught fire in a half. There was a 50-point half, 52 points against Washington, and a 48-point second half against Maryland. Those are the promising signs that you want to see for Indiana, either getting out of the gate hot against Washington or picking things up in the second half against Maryland. Those can make or break games, and they did in these last two. And with a tough stretch ahead in Big Ten play, you need that rhythm. You need that confidence. You need that motivation, the momentum to have those high scoring halves and also play defense on the other end if you want to get some wins in Big Ten play. And that's exactly what this Indiana team needs looking forward.
Well, now we can turn our attention to the big stretch of games we've got coming up, and it starts Saturday. I'm intrigued to see how the crowd plays into a factor of this. We'll touch on Nebraska in a second, but the crowd here, IU football plays Friday night at 7:30 Eastern. Basketball tips off Saturday at noon Eastern against top 10 Nebraska. What's the crowd look like? How much of an impact does it have? Is it going to be the assembly hall we're used to seeing for top 10 games? What do you sort of think? Are you going to be back from Atlanta to go to the game?
Nope, I will not be back. Here's what I'll say. Indiana football has taken precedent over Indiana basketball up to this point, and it will continue to do so until Indiana football is done. Indiana fans rated Pasadena. Indiana fans rated the Big Ten championship game. Indiana fans rated the bucket game, and they're ready to do so for as long as it takes. And you look at the basketball games, and there are not many people there. And that's expected. I mean, what do you would you rather go to the Peach Bowl in Atlanta or go to, I know it's a top 10 game, but the first ever college football playoff semifinal in Atlanta, or prioritize a top 10 basketball matchup at home? And I think right now a lot of the people are going to say Atlanta. And there are a lot of people here wearing cream and crimson. The fact that it's a noon game is terrible for those people that want to try and at least do the double. Depends if people are flying. I drove to Atlanta. Um, but the way that football's going, that's where all the eyes are, and that's where people's thoughts are. And as much as it is terrible for the basketball team to not have that attention against a top 10 team at home, this is a historic football moment for this university, and that's where the eyes are. That's where I stand. And I agree with them. If I had the choice of going to a top 10 basketball game at home or the Peach Bowl in Atlanta for a semifinal chance to go to the national championship game, I would go to Atlanta. Well, here I am. So that's my thought.
I think things potentially, I don't think they'd change right away. Obviously, if Indiana football is to unfortunately lose on Friday, which we're obviously not hoping for, you'll see a lot more fans shift to basketball, especially if they pick up a positive result here on Saturday. The other side of things is even if football wins, Indiana's next home game is on Saturday, January 17th. The national championship, I believe, is the 19th of January, correct? That
Yep.
Monday.
Hmm.
So people they could realistically be there for the game against Iowa and then end up going to Miami later in the week. Not sure when media gets there and all that stuff for a Monday game. But if Indiana beats Nebraska, Indiana will be 13 and 3, 4 and 1 in the Big 10 with a win over a top 10 Nebraska team. This isn't a bad Indiana basketball team. It's not like they're 500. They're not 7 and 8. They're not 9 and 6. They're 12 and 3 with arguably their biggest stretch of the season coming up as well. So I get that the focus on football. Football's got a chance to do what's never been done in the history of Indiana before, and that's win a football national championship. Am I correct in that? I don't think they've ever won one
Yeah.
before. It's historic. It's fantastic. It's amazing. And you can say football's taken over. I understand it. I'll always be the fact that Indiana's still a basketball school. And if Indiana basketball is in the chance to win a national championship, it's going to be a much bigger deal than Indiana football winning a national championship. And that's just my belief. I'm not saying this Indiana basketball team can win a national championship, but this is their biggest stretch of the year. This is the biggest 5, 6 games that they're going to have all season and kind of determine their NCAA tournament hopes in these next probably 7 or 8 games. They're going to need the fans to also get behind them. They can't be straight negativity. It can't be, oh my goodness, this team is terrible. This Indiana football is so much more enjoyable to watch. What arguably they are, they could be potentially 13 and 3, 4 and 1 in the conference, and beat top 10 Nebraska. I don't know what more you can ask for from a first year head coach. I get that the loss to Minnesota is frustrating. The loss to Kentucky is frustrating. I understand that. And it makes sense. However, when you look at it at the beginning of the year, you kind of penciled in Kentucky and Louisville's losses. And you figured you would lose one of the first 4 Big 10 games. This is exactly where they stand right now. This is exactly where the team should be in the biggest stretch of the year. And I hope fans get behind them, not just on Assembly Hall's floor or in their seats, on social media, everywhere. I'm being the optimist. It's rare for me to be the optimist, but I'm doing it. People need to get behind this team, especially if they win on Saturday.
No, I fully agree. Um, this is the stretch where you can build your tournament resume. And it continues all the way through the rest of the season because the Big Ten is so good. But you have 4 ranked opponents in a row with 2 of them on the road. One of them has a chance to be number 1 by the time you go play them on the road in Michigan. And then you're playing another road game. Then you have your home Purdue game on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Boo. Sorry.
That's that's unfortunate.
And then you go out west and you have your West Coast trip at USC, at UCLA, not in that order. Flip that. And then you're home versus 2 solid opponents in Wisconsin, Oregon. Then you're back on the road against 2 ranked opponents, Illinois, and then your road Purdue game, which they get on a Friday night at 8. Lucky. Um, and then it kind of closes with an easier path at Northwestern, home versus Michigan State, which always seems to work out well for Indiana. I don't know why. And then Minnesota at Ohio State. If I'm speaking in SEC terms here, if Indiana is to beat Nebraska at home, I think that's when fans will be like, all right, okay, maybe we have something here. It's kind of similar to last year, 2024 Indiana football, when Indiana football beat Nebraska 56-7 at home, and then everybody was like, okay, maybe there's something going on here. I think if Indiana does end up 13 and 3, 4 and 1 in the Big Ten with a win over Nebraska, then people are going to get on board and be like, all right, we can go into Michigan State on Tuesday and maybe make some noise. But that's only if they beat Nebraska. I think if they get blown out or beat by Nebraska at home, knowing the Indiana basketball fan base, it may not go well for them. But
In all the incoming comments of, oh, we're going to lose all 5 or all 6 of the next 6 games because we get blown out by Nebraska. That'll be cinema. That'll be awesome on social media. Oh, this team couldn't compete with the top of the line anyway. You mentioned it. Even that back half of the schedule, Northwestern at home, Michigan State, who they've played pretty well at home against. They've honestly played well overall just against Michigan State over the last few years. It's been kind of weird because they've won at the Breslin Center, what, 3 times in the last 5 or 6 years? I think,
sounds
right?
something like that, yeah.
They won last year with a team that was not very good at all and ended up winning at Michigan State. So they also adjusted that tip time. That's now Tuesday at 7 p.m. instead of Tuesday at 8 p.m. in East Lansing. Not that that makes that much of a difference, but they did change that. But you get Nebraska at home, top 10 win. You get Iowa at home, and you feel good about those two because if Indiana plays well on their home floor as they have this year, which they've played extremely well on their home floor this year, they haven't lost on the home floor this year. Those are two of the games you like to have at home because Michigan's a great basketball team. If Michigan's number one team in the country, regardless of where they play, they're probably just the better team and will most likely beat whoever they play. Struggled against Penn State on the road, still found a way to beat them. The thing you can do with these ranked 10 to 25 ish teams, these are good resume wins. Hey, this is a top 10 win for Indiana against a Nebraska team that you can argue isn't as talented or isn't as good as Michigan State, who ranks 12th. They beat Illinois, but like I think this is a team that you can get. I think Iowa's a team that you can get on your home floor rather than hosting Michigan at home, Illinois at home, where you kind of feel like no matter what happens, no matter how big the crowd is, it's still going to come down to who's the better basketball team at the end of the day sometimes. Although it hasn't been the case with Purdue and IU. Nebraska and Iowa are games that you feel like you can get at home.
I never thought about it that way, and I really do like that. I agree. Like the games that you kind of made chalk up as a loss already, regardless of what happens, throw them on the road, and then get your winnable games on your home floor. I've never thought about it, but I like it. I agree.
I just think it makes it a lot easier to look at it that way. If Michigan's on your schedule, does it matter home or away whether you pencil it in as a win or a loss? I
I
think I think it changes if you have to go to Nebraska. I think it changes if you have to go play at Carver Hawkeye. That's a big difference. Getting those two teams at home makes the world of a difference. Going out west stinks. Getting Wisconsin at home is great. Indiana hasn't won at the Kohl Center in a long time. I don't even know how many years it's been since they won at the Kohl Center. 39, I want to say.
before I was born,
38, I
I
want to
know
say.
that.
Might be more. But like those games that you can already kind of pencil in as a loss, even though you don't want to do such a thing, they're on the road this year. They get good chances at home to beat really good teams, and I think that's beneficial. And I think if you win 3 of the 6 games you've got coming up against ranked opponents, you got a pretty good shot looking the rest of the way.
1998,
27 years,
something like that. Yeah,
28 years.
28.
Oh, so I
Yikes.
overshot a little bit. Still though,
That's
but
bad.
that's just a way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm being optimistic today. I'm home. I'm on break. We're about to go back. Being optimistic. Got the pom poms out. Those are games you feel good about at home. And you look at Nebraska. They've been really impressive this year. They've turned it around. Indiana football and Nebraska basketball are undefeated at the same time. Who would have thought that ever be said? Ever. Price Sanford stepped up. Rink Mast has been good seemingly every year he's been at Nebraska. And Coach Hoiberg's got them playing really, really well. But I think Nebraska and Iowa are two teams that you feel like you can get on your home floor.
Back to the fan question about this Nebraska game. Indiana fans probably know what Assembly Hall pricing looks like, and especially for a top 10 game. I'm seeing tickets as low as $30 for a top 10 home game against Nebraska on a Saturday afternoon in Bloomington. So that about tells you all you need to know there about expectation for a crowd.
I know some students got emails that if they were coming back early, they'd give them. They're not in obviously the ticket package because it's on break, but they would sell them at $20 for tickets for students. Not a bad get for a top 10 team, in my opinion.
Go get a
I
few
won't be
buyers
back.
there.
I won't be back. You won't be back. But like, if people are there early, please go fill up the stands. This is a huge game. It may not feel like it because it's just Nebraska and the name brand value's not there, but they've got the number 10 next to them, and they sure as heck got a good quad one win marking right next to them as well. If Indiana can somehow get it.
Well, there you have it. Indiana is set to play Nebraska Saturday afternoon at 12 p.m. Eastern. By then, you will have seen if Indiana is on or off of the national championship stage for football. I'll plug myself here. You can follow me for all your coverage for the Peach Bowl, depending on when this goes out with the Hoosier Network. Let's go. I'm in Atlanta, so I'll be there. And then we'll have you posted for the rest of the season. I'll be in East Lansing on Tuesday for the Michigan State game. I'll be calling that game on student radio. This has been quite the stretch of games and travel and a whole bunch of things going on. But that's the best part of working in media is being able to be around everything and tell the stories of it. So keep posted. Two big wins over Maryland and Washington for Indiana. They're set to go through the gauntlet of Nebraska, Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan, Rutgers, Purdue, and then the West Coast trip. And we'll have you